Okay, get this. In a quiet little village, there was this old lady everyone adored. Her hair was silver, her face lined with years, but her eyes still sparkling like the morning sun. No family, no husband, no kids. Yet she was the happiest soul around. Every morning, she'd sit under a giant banyan tree, smiling at people passing by like she carried a secret to life itself. And one day, when a young woman showed up in tears, convinced her world was falling apart, the old lady shared something that would change not just her life, but the entire village. That old lady wasn't just some random grandma sitting under a tree. She was the heart of that whole village. Every morning, like clockwork, she'd walk slowly to her favorite spot beneath the big banyan tree, settle on her little wooden stool, and greet everyone with a smile that could melt away a bad day. Kids would wave at her on their way to school. Farmers would stop by to chat before heading to the fields, and even the local shopkeepers swore their day felt better after talking to her. Her hair shimmered like strands of silver under the sun, and though time had carved deep lines across her face, her eyes still held that kind of warmth that made people feel seen, really seen. She lived alone in a tiny cottage by the edge of the village. Her husband had passed years ago, and she never had children. But if you asked her, she'd say she was never lonely. The village was her family, and that banyan tree? That was her porch to the world. No matter how hard life got, bad crops, long droughts, sickness spreading through the village, she never lost that smile. People couldn't quite figure out how she stayed so peaceful, but soon they'd find out. But here's where it gets interesting. One day, everything changed when a young woman named Priya came running to her, crying her heart out. Priya was young, maybe in her 20s, but that day she looked like the whole world had crashed on her shoulders. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her voice shaky as she tried to talk. She sat down beside the old lady, clutching the edge of her sari like she was holding on to the last thread of hope. "Grandma," she said, her words breaking apart, "my husband went to the city to find work. It's been weeks. No letter, no money, nothing. My kids are hungry. I don't know what to do." The old lady didn't rush to answer. She just listened, nodding slowly, her gentle eyes filled with compassion. Then, with a soft smile, she patted the ground beside her. "Sit down, my child," she said, her voice calm like a quiet stream. "Tell me, what do you think will happen?" Priya wiped her tears. "I don't know," she whispered. "Maybe he can't find work. Maybe he forgot about us. Maybe," her voice cracked, "maybe something bad happened." The old lady sighed gently. "When we fill our minds with dark thoughts," she said, "our hearts grow heavy and the world feels darker than it really is. But when we think good thoughts, our hearts feel lighter, and sometimes good things start to happen." Priya frowned, unsure. "How can I think good thoughts when everything around me is so bad?" The old lady smiled again and leaned in closer. "Let me tell you a story," she said. And that's when things took a turn. Because what she shared next would change the way Priya saw everything. So the old lady began, her voice soft but steady, the kind that could quiet the wind itself. "Once," she said, "there was a poor man who had nothing. No food, no money, not even a family to care for him. One day, he sat by the river crying so hard that the sound of his tears almost drowned out the flowing water." Priya listened closely, her eyes fixed on the old woman's face. The man kept saying, "Why me? Why is my life so empty?" The old lady continued. Then an old woman walked by. She stopped and asked, "Why are you crying, my son?" The man said, "I have nothing. How can I ever be happy?" The old woman in the story smiled and said, You have the river that never stops giving. You have trees that feed you and shade you. You have the sun that warms you every single day. Look around. The world hasn't taken everything from you. You still have life. Priya's tears slowed as she listened. The story felt almost too simple, but something about it tugged at her heart. The old lady went on. The man stopped crying. For the first time, he noticed the way the sunlight danced on the water, how the breeze carried the smell of mango trees. From that moment, he started to feel a tiny spark of peace. She smiled softly at Priya. He didn't get rich overnight. There was no miracle, but because he changed the way he thought, he found the strength to work, and little by little, his life changed. And that's when Priya realized this wasn't just some old story. It was a mirror being held up to her own life. The old lady looked at Priya and said, "You see, my dear, that man's life didn't change because of luck or magic. It changed because he changed." Her voice carried this quiet conviction that made every word sink in deep. When you start filling your mind with positive thoughts, you'll find strength you didn't even know you had. But when you only focus on what's wrong, you lose that strength before the day even begins. Priya sat there in silence, taking it all in. So, just thinking differently can really make things better? She asked, her tone half hopeful, half doubtful. "Yes, my child," the old lady said, nodding. "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, today is going to be a good day. You might still have problems, but your heart will be lighter. You'll handle things better. You'll see solutions where you used to see walls." Something about those words hit Priya right in the chest. For the first time in weeks, she felt like maybe, just maybe, there was a way forward. She wiped the last of her tears and whispered, "I'll try, Grandma. I'll try to think good thoughts from now on." The old lady smiled warmly. "That's the first step," she said. "Change starts right here." She tapped her heart, and from that day forward, Priya's life began to shift in a way that no one in the village saw coming. Segment 5. From the very next morning, Priya did exactly what the old lady told her. As the first rays of sunlight slipped through her window, she whispered to herself, "Today will be a good day." She said it again and again until she actually started to believe it. She got up, washed her face, and smiled at her kids. Really smiled for the first time in a long while. Even though she didn't have much, she cooked breakfast with love, tended to her small garden, and worked harder than ever before. Every night she told herself she'd done her best, and every morning she started fresh with hope. Weeks passed, and one afternoon, a letter arrived. It was from her husband. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside, it said he'd found a job in the city and was sending money home soon. Tears of joy filled her eyes. She ran as fast as she could to the banyan tree to tell the old lady. The old lady listened, smiling that same peaceful smile. "You see, my dear," she said softly, "when we think good thoughts, we invite good things into our lives. Problems will always come. That's life. But when you face them with hope, you find the strength to rise above them." Word of Priya's change spread across the whole village. People started coming to the old lady, sharing their struggles, and leaving with something far more valuable than advice. They left with hope. And what happened next proved that her simple wisdom could transform an entire community. Soon, it wasn't just Priya whose life had turned around. It was the whole village. Word spread fast about the old lady's advice, and one by one, people started coming to her under that banyan tree. Farmers who used to complain about the dry fields began to work with renewed spirit. Shopkeepers who used to worry about slow days started greeting customers with smiles. Even kids noticed their parents seemed lighter, happier, more alive. Everywhere you looked, things just felt different. Not because the village suddenly got richer or the weather got better, but because the people had changed how they thought. They carried that same hopeful energy Priya had found, and slowly, life in the village began to shine again. The old lady became more than just a kind soul. She became a living symbol of hope. Her words echoed in everyone's hearts. Think good thoughts, and good things will follow. And they did. The truth she taught them was simple, but powerful. Our thoughts shape our world. When we focus on what's good, even in hard times, we find the strength to move forward. When we look for light, we become the light. So remember this: no matter how dark things get, a hopeful heart is a strong heart. Because sometimes, the only thing standing between despair and peace is one good thought.